So it's the time of the year again where I go through my main Speedcube. I think it's quite a known fact if you have followed my channel that I have DIY core magnetized most of my cubes, and this was actually even before PyCube or any third party store was doing it. And there are actually 4 generations of magnetic cores which I've made, and I'm going to call them Generation 1, Generation 2, the 12 and the 13. The last two are obviously named after gun cubes due to how similar they look. So starting off with Generation 1, the goal of this one is just to mainly make the corner magnets as low as they possibly can go, as well as the core magnets are going to be as high as they can possibly go without touching the cube's torpedoes. This one I call it the 12 because it's very similar to the gun 12. Instead of having a single magnet, I usually use a rod magnet to descend very deep, and then the shell that surrounds the core is significantly smaller. So the problem with doing this is descending it too deep may actually touch the torpedoes. So for those cubes that I magnetized with the 12 system, I actually did cut the torpedoes a little bit shorter. Then next up, I have Generation 2, which basically uses a piece that resembles a rook from chess. So you can tell that there's a base. Obviously here is triangular base because the corner base is triangular. And like on top of the base there's actually a very narrow neck, and this is to avoid the cube's torpedo. And then on top of that, we have the castle head, which I used to put the magnet in. Generation 2 sounds like a very good idea on paper because I can actually make the corner magnets go really close to the core, have a much stronger auto alignment and more stability, but there's actually quite a number of practical problems when making it because I needed to print the parts very exactly, and armed with only an FDM printer, there's always issues of stringing or something that would sometimes cause the magnet to be glued in slanted, as well as the fact that the core pieces tend to be very small and there's not much area to glue onto, so there are issues of them dislocating. So I did try to sell a few Gen 2 core corner magnetized cubes, but ever since then I have discontinued the Zisu, but I still left the Meilong on the store. And finally I have the 13, which basically is just the Generation 2 system, but I glued an extra magnet onto the base of the edge. So starting off with what would probably be my top 2 least favorite events, that 2x2 I use a Tangpo. For 3x3 it's not exactly that clear which one I use anymore. So during the beginning of 2023, when Moi was just starting out doing this,
三阶魔方，三阶魔方，三阶魔方，三阶魔方，三阶魔方，高阶魔方，异形魔方，三阶魔方。
Huameng YS3M was really hyped up, and I got one. It was the ball core. I do find that it's really stable, and the UV coating makes the grip quite a lot better. Meanwhile, I have a RS3. This is the one that's maglev by default, but I also added a Generation 1 core corner magnet to this. And compared to last year, I've also changed the spring compression from level 0 to level 2, and I like it a lot better. The logo is now not here anymore. It's actually underneath the cap. And that's because I went to use this cube to compete in blind. Next up, I actually got involved in a new event, or at least new to me actually. Obviously this event is around for a very long time, but I started to get on and off this event, which is Megaminx. I got a YJ Yihu at the start of the year, which served as my only Megaminx. I had an offer from a friend who wanted to sell me a PyCube Core Mag Yihu, as well as a spare core, and at that point in time I already had plans to make a Master Kilominx, so I decided to accept the offer and use this one as a sacrificial cube to take its core and screws, but not the springs, to make the Master Kilominx, which currently is still half done. So I did use the PyCube Megaminx as my main for a while, but the sad part of the story is I dropped it on the floor in one particular competition and the core broke. Now I'm back to using my original Yihu, while the Master Kilominx is built over the spare core as well as all the screws from the PyCube Yihu. Next up, we have the event where I'm actually the least satisfied with the hardware, reason being it's just outdated. So I would say that most people would think that the Aosu WRM is probably the best 4x4. After a while, and even then it came out 2019, and there are cheaper models that have come out since then, but I feel that none of them really top the Aosu. Currently, what I don't like about it is big and heavy, which is completely not a problem in 2019 and 2020 when this cube first came out. In fact, it was 59mm, the smallest mainstream size back then, and I was super impressed with it when I first tried it. But now that the Aoshi and Aofu WRM exists, I also think that a 58mm 4x4 under 100 grams is possible, and well, this one is still great for most purposes. Yeah, I mean, I remember back in the day when I first unboxed this thing, I just showed off how fluidly you can pull off the RUD V-pump. Our technology has progressed and we probably can make a better 4x4 than this now. It's just not yet done. A few other alternative cubes that I've used. Other one was the Meilong 4x4. So this one is actually lighter and more stable than the Aosu WRM, but the corner cutting is worse. It's also 59mm, which is really awesome in 2019 and 2020, but it no longer stacks up against the Meilong V2 60mm 5x5, 61mm 6x6, and a 63mm 7x7, which it's still technically smaller than all the cubes that I mentioned, but because you know, if you draw the line 5, 6, 7 and feel it with your hands, you would expect 4 to be a little bit lower. And finally, we have the Zhishu 13 UV. So yeah, this cube is just mainly cool for the number of features that I was able to pack into it, plus I do like the size the best. I did use this cube a bit also when my comm nerves got too high to control my Meilong. I also use this as a travel cube because it's easier to throw in the bag. And non-WCA events, I don't really do a lot 10x10, and the Meilong 10 is my, like, okay, it's a magnetic Meilong 10, but no core corner magnets in this one. And like, it's currently my only 10x10 and I don't see the need to replace this. For 9x9, it's a little bit more interesting. I use a UV coated magnetic Qi. I have tried and gotten a sub 8 single on my friend's Tiansheng. So originally I said that because the Qi big cubes have a 2-shell mechanism, while the Tiansheng ones have a 3-shell mechanism, the Tiansheng ones are just stiff like rocks, and the Qi ones actually have a better max potential if you take the time to set up and magnetize one. But I've changed my mind since then because firstly, I made this conclusion based on the 8x8s, and secondly, I actually tried all 4 cubes in question, like because of the Tiansheng contest. So I went to borrow a Tiansheng 9x9 from a friend, and then I got a sub 8 single, and this one actually popped on me, and I failed the sub 8 just because of a pop. And obviously, it's not eligible since Tiansheng is the host of that competition, so they're probably not going to accept videos with another cube from a different brand. But after trying all 4 of those cubes, I would say that the Tiansheng 9x9 is better than the 8x8, but the Qi 9x9 is worse than the Qi 8x8. So this narrows the gap between the two 9x9s. 8x8 make Florian modded. Obviously factory magnetized. Okay, none of my non-WCA big cubes have core corner magnets, and I would say this one is still significantly more stiff than what I got from Qi. And finally, saving the best for the last, I actually don't have that much to say. Generally, Moi WRM cubes are super reliable and they're most people's go-to options, but 5x5 has slight more variety because some also use the Valve 5, it's pretty reliable as well. I occasionally use this, although I think this one is still my default. And also the MGC, which I don't use. And then the other ones are the Meilongs, which are super light, super fast, and super satisfying to turn, although less reliable due to the corner cutting being less. For competition purposes, I would probably still use those things in the front row. For home practice, actually, the Meilong V2s are probably actually the more enjoyable cubes too. Then I actually have yet to buy a Meilong 7 V2 because I have 2 Alpha WRMs. Exactly what are the setups? My Valve 5 has no mods done to it. My Ultron WRM has the Gun 12 core magnet mod. The Meilong 5M also has the Gun 12 core magnet mod, but this one uses actual rod magnets. This one uses 2 magnets stacked on top of each other. And the Meilong 6 and the Ultra WRM, they are modded with my Generation 1 mod, because when it comes to cubes of this size, they are pretty much the same size as a 5x5, but they have more pieces and there's just less room inside, so I can't really do much fancy Gen 2 stuff. I'm just limited to doing the Gen 1 mod, and so same thing for my Alpha WRM. So these two are different in the sense where this is factory stock unmodded. This one is originally the prototype where the second layer misaligns too easily. I've stacked extra magnets, so now it's actually more difficult to misalign than the prototype. And this one is also called corner magnetized with Gen 1.